Hey, Cash Course fans! Before we start the show, remember that you can get hundreds of free educational videos for all ages at PragerUkids.com. Subscribe today and never miss an episode. Do you ever wonder how people can look at the same thing, say a painting, and come away with completely different ideas about what it means?
It's so moving. The artist is a genius.
What's so genius about randomly throwing paint on a canvas?
Art and fashion can be deeply interpretive, but even things like economics have people split with differing opinions. There's a great divide over what seems like simple issues to most, like taxation, monetary policy, and government regulation. These differences can be separated into various schools of economic thought. There are four main schools: classical, Keynesian, Monetarism, and Austrian. Each takes a unique approach to driving value creation, trade, and consumption in an economy. Let's take a closer look at each of them. The first is the classical school, credited to Adam Smith and his classic work, The Wealth of Nations, published in 1776. Smith observed that the government played a large role in the various European nations around him at the time, including his own Great Britain. Trade was highly regulated and wealth was fixed mainly to the top level of society.
This left most people to suffer under high taxes, inflation, and government corruption.
Smith believed a better alternative was minimal government intervention and more individual autonomy, allowing markets to operate more freely. This, in turn, would lead to economic growth that spreads a nation's wealth to more of its citizens. Let's put this idea into practice. Say an entrepreneur has started a t-shirt business, but no one is buying them. Classical economists would handle this issue with as little government intervention as possible. They would instead promote innovation and creativity on the part of the entrepreneur, such as
redesigning the t-shirt to set them apart from the competition. Be free to choose your own ideas to drive up sales.
Okay, but what if I want the government's help?
The government? That's the other guy.
That other guy is John Maynard Keynes, who originated the Keynesian school of economic thought. This school focuses on aggregate demand, which is the total demand for goods and services. Keynesians believe aggregate demand, as opposed to supply, is the main driving force of all economic activity. When an economy slows down, it's the government that needs to intervene to increase demand. So, if demand for the t-shirt company is low, Keynesians would suggest
a change in government fiscal policy to encourage more buyers.
Fiscal policies could include government-paid discounts to certain groups or at certain times. Or they could include subsidies for clothing companies to boost that particular industry with the intention to drive down t-shirt prices and increase demand.
Without government intervention, it would be quite difficult to increase your sales.
Another point of view is monetarism, which originates from famed economist Milton Friedman. Like the classical school, monetarists believe government economic intervention should be limited, but when needed, they believe that monetary policy, which influences the money supply, is more impactful to economic activity than fiscal policy. When there's more money in circulation, people tend to spend more, whereas when there's less money in supply, people will tend to save. This expands or contracts the economy, changing the demand for goods and services. In the case of the t-shirt company, monetarists might suggest
increase the money supply.
Nice!
This could lead to more spending on things like t-shirts and other clothing. However,
we caution against increasing the supply too quickly, which leads to inflation.
That's because if people have more money to spend, but t-shirt prices skyrocket, the purchasing power of their money actually decreases, since it won't buy as much as it did before.
Exactly.
Finally, we have the Austrian school, which originated with Karl Menger. Like the classic or monetarism school, this school also leans toward less government in the market. They were the first to recognize diminishing marginal utility, the idea that the value of a thing decreases as you gain more of that thing. For example, having one hammer to build a house is highly valuable, but having 5, 10, or 50, not so much. They also observed that
prices can be affected by not just strict supply and demand, but also subjective factors, like personal preferences.
This includes things like brand recognition, where a product's produced, and what materials are used. The Austrian economist might suggest that the t-shirt company change its marketing focus by
Clearly highlighting the benefits of the product.
Since people make decisions based on their own interests, the seller might want to promote that the t-shirt, say, uses Egyptian cotton or makes you look more attractive. This strategy uses a product's added value instead of its price to attract a consumer's interest, which could lead to increased sales.
And you'll look good, and you'll look better, and you'll look...
With a topic as complicated as economics, it's not surprising that there are many different views on how it all works. These 4 schools are just a few of the many out there, and each school's recommendation has its trade-offs depending on the situation. With a better understanding of these schools, you'll be better able to recognize the economic trends at work in the economy around you.
Now this, you have to agree, is genius. No, wait, come back.
Watch more at PragerUkids.com. And parents, don't forget to subscribe.